You're listening to Emergency Relay Channel 1190 kHz AM. Broadcasting on backup generator from the old Firewatch outpost on Mount Eldon, just north of Flagstaff, Arizona. This is Station ID Echo November 2, operator Marcus Keller, civilian technician, former signal supervisor for the FAA at Phoenix Sky Harbor. If you're hearing this, the internet is gone. You probably already know that. But what you might not know, what no one's had time to say out loudest, that this wasn't a simple outage. This was a kill switch, a coordinated takedown. Not just of platforms or traffic, but the infrastructure itself. Cables cut, nodes burned, repeaters fried, satellites silenced. All in under 72 hours. I'll explain. Just stay with me. 3 days ago, I was still in Phoenix. I'd taken a short contract with NOAA's regional station near Deer Valley to recalibrate their radar after a misfire during that last lightning storm. I wasn't even supposed to be working. They called me in as a favor. Said their primary tech had gone dark in the middle of a diagnostic. By the time I drove up I-17 and got to the site, I knew something was off. Cell signal kept bouncing between towers and dropping entirely. Navigation apps locked up. Even my NOAA-issued sat radio was looping error codes. I switched to analog, AM band, and tried to tune the local frequency. Silence. That shouldn't have been possible. They always keep a test loop going. When I entered the station, the power was flickering. Backup systems were active, but no uplink. The diagnostic logs showed massive packet loss, starting just after 400 hours. Their primary link to the National Weather Net had gone from 4.9 stability to 0, not degraded. Gone. Like the network it was talking to no longer existed. Still, I thought it was just their gear. Then I checked my phone. The lock screen was frozen battery full. No service, no apps responding. I did a hard reset, powered it up, nothing but the startup logo and a static white screen. I tried another unit from the emergency drawer. Same thing. I got out of there fast. Driving south toward Phoenix, the freeways were chaos. No traffic signs were updating. Stoplights were stuck flashing red. People were parked along the shoulders, staring at phones, talking in tight circles. The air was wrong quiet in a way that didn't feel natural. I kept scanning the radio. Most FM stations were just dead air. A couple of AM bands carried strange, fragmented tones, almost like teletype noise. I finally locked onto one shortwave loop on 7.400 megahertz, something in Russian. It kept repeating two words I remembered from a training course. Set отключено. Network disabled. I took an exit at Black Canyon City, climbed one of the old service roads that wraps around the mountain, and reached this decommissioned Firewatch postone I used to help maintain back in my 20s. Figured it was high enough, far enough, and wired for backup power. I keep a diesel cache here, manual crank generator, some solar, analog comms. I patched together the transmitter with spare boards and rigged an old portable transceiver to handle the shortwave fallback. That's where I am now. That's what you're hearing. Here's what I know, as someone who's worked telecom for 2 decades. This wasn't caused by solar activity. The NOAA logs show nothing irregular. No solar flares, no geomagnetic spikes. This wasn't a Carrington-class event. This was human. Possibly state-sponsored, possibly not. The first backbone failure occurred in Western Europe, near Bordeaux, France. That's where one of the major transatlantic cables terminates AC1. Around 300 hours, all data flow through that route flatlined. Reports say fishing vessels were seen over the area days prior, loitering. A similar thing happened 2 hours later, near Halifax, Nova Scotia landing zone, for the TAT-14 cable. Same story. Then came the terrestrial hits. New York's primary internet exchange went down just after dawn. A fire, supposedly electrical, consumed the Telx facility at 60 Hudson Street. I worked on that site years ago. It doesn't just burn down. That's the backbone for half the eastern seaboard's peering traffic. London's Lynx facility went silent minutes later. The Pacific Gateway in Singapore blinked out by noon. And under the cover of that chaos, the undersea routes were sabotaged. South Atlantic cables severed off the coast of Luanda. Indian Ocean cables near the Maldives gone. Japan's landing points, Shima and Chikura saw blackouts. Once the big cloud providers lost routing authority, the rest followed like dominoes. AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, every site, every DNS, every email, gone. Not censored, not throttled, obliterated. That silence you're hearing when you open your laptop? That's not a glitch. That's not offline mode. That's the sound of a billion machines pinging empty air. Let me walk you through what this means. First, the financial sector. Stock exchanges use fiber optic low latency lines to communicate across borders. New York to London to Tokyo. No internet, no trades, no quotes. Automated sell-offs can't even trigger because the routers can't handshake. Second, logistics. Every truck, every port, every rail system depends on cloud-based manifests. Warehouses don't stock like they used to. It's just-in-time fulfillment. With comms gone, nobody knows what to load, ship, or receive. Third, public utilities. Water plants, power grids. Most rely on SCADA, Systems Industrial Control Networks. They're supposed to be isolated, but many were upgraded for remote monitoring over cloud dashboards. No dashboards, no oversight. Fail-safes trip, valves shut. Power brownouts begin. Add to that the disappearance of communications, messaging, navigation, banking, hospital networks, air traffic control. Even the satellites in LEO are stuck in listen mode with no downlink partners. Most were dependent on ground relays tied into the internet for telemetry. The ISS is in blackout. As far as I can tell, the GPS constellation is still functioning. At least the military tier, but most civilian receivers are blind due to firmware issues. Without updates, their internal clocks drift. Within 72 hours, they're useless. Now, for those who keep asking, who would do this? I don't have that answer. Not yet. But I do know this. It wasn't one group. It wasn't one country. This was timed too well. It had to be multiple actors each, targeting different choke points with different methods. Coordinated, but compartmentalized. Cyber tools here. Demolitions there. Jamming signals in between. This may have been an anti-globalist strike, a return to sovereign data control, or it may have been an accidental escalation gone too far. But whoever did it, they knew the systems. They understood the dependencies. And they knew that cutting the cables wasn't the end, it was the beginning. This is Emergency Relay Channel, 1190 kHz AM. Operator Marcus Keller. Station ID Echo November 2. Broadcasting live from Mount Eldon Firewatch, Flagstaff, Arizona. Day 4, since the backbone fell silent. Day 2, since local systems began failing beyond recovery. If you're still receiving this, welcome back. If you're new, stay tuned. Tonight's update is less about what we lost and more about what's left. I want to talk about what happened in the immediate hours after the last of the internet exchange points went down. People didn't react the way you'd expect. There was no rioting. Not at first. Just a strange kind of quiet. No phones buzzing. No car horns. No Spotify bleeding through open windows. It was like waking up inside a photograph of a town that hadn't realized it was dead yet. I drove through downtown Flagstaff the morning after the cutout. Usually, you'll hear the university crowd, early NAU students crossing campus or grabbing coffee at late for the train. But the sidewalks were bare. Stores hadn't opened. Power was still on, but registers weren't working. ATMs displayed blank LCD panels or BIOS error strings. Gas pumps locked. People stood in clumps outside Verizon and T-Mobile storefronts, holding dead phones in their hands like maybe the signal would come back if they waited long enough. A few walked in and came out with prepaid batteries and USB cables, thinking maybe it was a charger issue. It wasn't. By mid-afternoon, the rumors had started. Temporary outage. Just the local tower. A firmware bug, probably. Some said it was a cyber attack. Others said it was a solar flare. A few mentioned China, or North Korea, or an AI gone rogue. Classic armchair speculation. But then police radios started cutting out. That's when things shifted. See, most departments abandoned analog years ago. They use encrypted LTE push-to-talk over the FirstNet backbone, which is great until the backbone dies. Same with fire dispatch. Same with EMS. One patrol unit I spoke with, Officer Bailey from Coconino County, said they couldn't even check license plates or call in reports. They were relying on handwritten logs and paper maps pulled from the glove box. That's when I knew the infrastructure wasn't just offline. It was over. I gave Bailey one of my old Baofeng analog handhelds, showed him the VHF emergency bands. I still keep printed frequency sheets in the truck, laminated. He didn't laugh at me like most used to. Not anymore. Now, let's talk logistics. What's actually working? Analog radios? Still good. Shortwave and ham? Limited but functional. CB? Useful in urban areas if people remember how to use them. I picked up a group yesterday broadcasting from Gallup, New Mexico. Sounded like a prepper net guys using code names like Silver Jackal and Miner One. They were relaying fuel availability, roadblock locations, safe rest stops, old school stuff. Honest, grounded, useful. Tucson PD is running a localized AM broadcast loop with announcements every 2 hours. Their emergency operations center switched over to analog and is coordinating foot patrols. They're asking residents to place white flags or towels on their porches if they need medication, red ones if they're out of food. Northern California's got a loop running out of Reading Talk radio style, mostly manual weather updates and news bulletins read aloud from scribbled notes. The signal's weak, but consistent. They mention parts of Oregon trying to restart basic municipal communication using school radio clubs and leftover ham rigs. It's fragile, but it's something. Here in Flagstaff, we've got a tiny relay forming. A former paramedic named Isaac is running a triage point out of the old American Legion Hall on San Francisco Street. I stopped by earlier today. He's got two-way CB up and a battery-powered NOAA receiver tuned to anything above noise floor. His wife, a retired nurse, is sorting supplies. They had a whiteboard showing daily symptoms reported, so if something contagious breaks out, they'll know. There's also a woman named Retired Air Force who opened her garage and turned it into a local info board. Real paper, real ink. She posts messages people leave on index cards, from family updates to missing persons. She writes new notices in block letters with a Sharpie. No signal, no apps, just staples and cardboard. When I handed her a printed frequency list, she added it to the board under How to Listen. The page was full of circles and notes by the end of the hour. Let's talk security. No full breakdown yet, but it's coming. I saw the first real incident today, near the I-40 exit ramp. Someone broke into a parked tanker truck outside the Shell station, probably looking for gas, maybe water. They got inside the cab, tried to hotwire it. The driver had stayed behind, sleeping in the berth. I guess he thought it was just a bad day, not the end of the system. He's gone now. Locals tried to chase the thief, but without cell service or license plate lookups, there's no way to trace a stolen rig. It's just vanished down the highway. We're back to trusting strangers by their face, their tone, their eyes. Some gas stations have started barricading pumps. Not because there's no fuel, but because there's no way to manage lines, no way to log transactions. Some have begun offering trades batteries, food, meds, in exchange for a set number of gallons. It's crude, but it's working for now. Up near Winslow, I heard a volunteer crew was organizing highway watch patrols. They're using blinking light towers, powered by hand-cranked generators to signal hazard zones. Red for blockage, green for passable, yellow for unknown. People are adapting. Not fast enough, but it's happening. Let me pause here and say something to those of you listening on battery-powered sets, or who just stumbled across this while scanning for a voice. Start printing. Start writing. Start remembering how to live without being told what to click. Maps, recipes, medication guides, survival manuals. Print them, store them, trade them. Charge your radios with solar banks. Learn Morse. Learn how to read a sky without a forecast. Analog rules now. Digital dies when the wires are cut. Now, I've gotten some transmissions asking about government response. Here's what I know. FEMA's national servers are down. Their cloud-hosted alert systems no longer function. The last known coordination signals were issued through the iPause system, those emergency alerts you used to get on your phone. But without cell towers, or the alert aggregation servers, they're dead in the water. Some regional emergency command centers are still active. Colorado's Cheyenne Mountain Complex sent out a brief analog beacon on VLF, piggybacking off an old submarine alert channel. It repeated a single instruction. Hold current position. Do not engage. Await ground contact. Other than that, nothing from NORAD, nothing from DHS, nothing from White House comms. A few amateur operators report encrypted signals from a stationary position in Wyoming, possibly Warren Air Force Base. Could be military fallback. Could be a remnant auto loop from missile defense. Too garbled to verify. If you're military, reserve, or National Guard, try UHF airband. Stick to protocol. Report status to relay nets if possible. You're listening to Emergency Relay Channel 1190 kHz AM. Station Echo November 2. This is Marcus Keller, transmitting from Mount Eldon just above Flagstaff, Arizona. Day 5. 5 days since the last intact digital route went dark. 5 days since we became untethered from the network that held us together. If you're tuning in for the first time, welcome. You haven't lost your mind. This is real. You're not the only one hearing static where the world used to be. And if you've been listening since the beginning, stay close. The noise out there is getting worse. I want to open with a warning. Don't trust the carrier beacons coming from Channel 3 in Albuquerque. Yesterday, between 1,400 and 1,800 hours, multiple operators in the region reported a reactivation signal on the 1.9 band-old CDMA frequency. The transmission used a familiar tower handshake protocol, something mimicking the old Verizon network ID. It pinged with a strong uplink request, just enough to cause nearby phones to light up, display bars, and show 1x RTT connectivity. The problem is, there was no actual data transmission, no DNS, no routing, just the illusion of service. Several people I spoke to from Winslow to Holbrook said they spent hours trying to send message, text, voice, anything. One man even left his truck running while he stood on the roof with a battery pack strapped to his phone, convinced he could reach his son in El Paso. Never got a response. My theory? Someone, maybe a rogue technician, maybe an automated repeater was trying to simulate network presence, maybe to restore morale, maybe to bait devices into draining their batteries. I don't know. But I've confirmed that no functioning core switch exists west of Kansas City. Anything showing bars out here is fake. A ghost signal. Stick to analog. Stick to AM, CB, ham, or direct line of sight if you're lucky enough to still have line gear. Digital's a trap. Let me tell you what's happening in the cities now. Flagstaff is holding on. Barely. Mostly because we're small and already tight-knit. But I got a transmission earlier from a relay operator near Chandler. It's not good. Phoenix is fracturing. Without traffic systems or active dispatch, the main arteries loop 202, I-10, 7th Avenue Air gridlocked. People have abandoned their cars in the heat. Grocery stores have started operating on barter, but inventories are collapsing. One operator said a crowd surrounded a Safeway in South Mountain and forced the staff to open the back loading docks. Not with threats, just with desperation. Hospitals are overwhelmed. Without database access, prescriptions can't be verified. Lab results can't be shared. Insurance doesn't matter anymore. One nurse told me they started using post-it notes to identify patients, handwritten vitals, clipboard triage. And now, the rumor mill is in full swing. There's talk that the military is restoring the grid, that a reboot is coming, that Starlink will turn on backup access for everyone. Let me be clear. No satellite system Starlink, OneWeb, SES scan support full global internet without the ground infrastructure to route traffic. The satellites are relays, not ISPs. They need working terminals. They need working peering agreements and DNS uplinks. Those systems are down. Even if Starlink did reactivate emergency mode, it could only handle a fraction of the data load. Think relief coordination, not Netflix. Think one hospital or a regional bunker, not your phone. I got a message Morse 2 nights ago from a man in Las Cruces, New Mexico. His name is Elias, retired electronics instructor from NMSU. He said he built a working intranet for his block using Ethernet cables run across balconies and between homes. No internet, just a local network. Kids are playing chess. Neighbors are leaving text files for each other in shared folders. That's where we're heading. Local-only data, analog broadcasts, low-tech sharing, temporary power grids run on inverters and car batteries, a return to cables, hand-cranked radios, physical mail. Not because it's charming, because it's all we've got. And here's something personal. Last night I sat on the deck outside the station, sipping water from a melted snow cache. I looked down toward Flagstaff. The grid's still spotty, but you can tell who's got solar. You can tell who's running generators by the rhythmic hum or the flickering window glow. I thought about the early days of the internet, when I first logged onto a dial-up bulletin board from my uncle's attic in Tucson. I remember the shriek of the modem, the slow-loading text, the joy of finding a message left just for me. Now the silence feels heavier, like we forgot how to wait, how to be still, how to be real. A world built on speed just ran out of road. Quick note for those traveling. Interstate 17 is partially blocked near Camp Verde. A collapsed overpass is forcing detours. Use McGuireville or Cherry Road exits if you're heading north. Interstate 40 is congested around Kingman due to abandoned rigs and a stalled fuel convoy. Local residents are using quad bikes to shuttle supplies between trucks. Avoid unless you have a reason. Route 66 is surprisingly clear but patchy. Look out for roadside fires. Seems like people are burning signage for warmth. If you're traveling at night, mount reflectors or a weak strobe to your antenna tip. I recommend using chem lights for low glow visibility instead of flashlights. It'll help you avoid collisions without drawing attention. Now some good news. Finally, earlier today, I received a stable signal from a repeater station in Boise, Idaho. They're organizing an analog national net on a rotating frequency cycle. Here's how it works. Every 4 hours, they shift the main frequency band by 100 kilohertz, alternating between day and night ranges to adjust for ionospheric propagation. Operators check in, relay headlines from local areas, and share status updates like power availability, security conditions, and medical needs. So far, they've heard from Portland, Spokane, Cheyenne, and parts of Salt Lake City. I'll post the current rotation at the end of this broadcast. If you're a ham operator, or know someone who is, pass this on. It's the closest thing we've got to a functioning national bulletin board. I've also been asked to read out some family locator messages, handwritten notes, delivered up the mountain on paper. I'll share a few tomorrow, at 800 hours. If you'd like to leave one, head to the Legion Hall on San Francisco Street, board marked N2, and tape it in the corner. We may not have phones, but we still have voices. Closing thoughts tonight. If you're hearing this from a rooftop in Tucson, a basement in Santa Fe, a truck stop in Gallup, or a garage in Prescott, you are not alone. There is no master reboot. There is no universal patch. But there is community. There are hands building antennas from coat hangers. There are teachers giving lessons by chalkboard. There are families passing around battery-powered radios in the dark, hoping for a voice like this one. Let it be yours next. This is Marcus Keller, Station ID Echo November 2, broadcasting out of the Mount Eldon Firewatch Tower above Flagstaff, Arizona. Day 6, since global internet functionality collapsed. Day 6, since digital silence became our only constant. And tonight, I need to talk to you about the border. Not just the southern one, but the idea of borders altogether, now that the lines we depended on have vanished. This morning I picked up a long-range signal from Nogales. Weak, barely modulated, but unmistakably real. Someone down there rigged a directional antenna to punch through the canyon interference and reach this far north. The voice identified himself as Enrique Molina, a former CBP radio operator. His outpost, what's left of ITIS, now being used as a regional coordination post for migration flow. Yes, flow. I want to make this clear. The border's gone. There's no more real-time identity checks, no biometric scans, no Interpol pingbacks, no shared criminal databases, no satellite verification. Without the network, there's no enforcement grid. And people on both sides know it. That means it's not just movement north into the U.S. It's movement south, too. Here's what Enrique reported. At least 400 people crossed into Mexico yesterday from Arizona. Some were American citizens looking for family. Some were preppers, chasing word of agricultural zones, still running under analog management in Sonora. Others were simply trying to escape Phoenix, which Enrique described as hot and stretched thin, with daily skirmishes now reported near Mesa and Central Chandler. His words, not mine. One grappled by a woman named LaShonda Price from Yuma Mate, 80 miles south on foot, traveling at night along the old rail lines until they reached an abandoned solar farm near Emuris. Locals there are said to be operating a small community powered by salvaged Tesla Powerwalls and converted irrigation lines. No cell coverage, no cameras, no permissions. Just barter, firelight, and shortwave. I also received a partial burst from El Paso. AM carrier on 69.0. Rough Spanish-English loop. Distorted, but clear enough to recognize key words. Hospital General, Bajo Control, Médicos todavía presentes, agua disponible limitada. I believe they're trying to establish medical corridors between El Paso and Ciudad Juarez. The hospitals on both sides were overwhelmed before this happened. Now they're turning to solar-pumped wells, diesel-run generators, and converted municipal buildings for triage. No formal aid, no CDC or WHO coordination, just small crews of survivors trying to patch broken systems by hand. I keep getting questions about when it's coming back. The internet. Let me answer with this. Even if every cable was repaired, even if the IXPs came online, even if all satellites reconnected to their ground stations, without synchronized time servers, without functioning DNS, without restored peering agreements, the internet as we knew it wouldn't boot up. Not fully, not globally. The network isn't just wires. It's trust. And right now, trust is dead. Let me read a short note. Written on notebook paper, hand-delivered to my Dropbox at the base of the tower. Reads, "My name is Carmen Estrella. I'm trying to reach my brother Luis. Last I heard, he was crossing from McAllen into Reynosa on Monday, trying to get our parents from Miguel Alemán. If you hear his name or his voice on any channel, please ask him to come back. The house is still here. The keys are buried under the blue flower pot. I'll keep this message on file and repeat it at sundown daily. Carmen, if you're listening, the message has been sent. If you have a note like that, something short, personal, traceable, bring it. Handwritten. Tape it to the board at the American Legion Hall on San Francisco Street in Flagstaff. Lower right corner under EN2. We will read every one. Now, a report from a regional operator near San Diego. A former Navy technician operating out of the old Point Loma Lighthouse site confirmed that a dark fleet of unmanned aerial drones passed over the coast around 300 hours yesterday. No transponder signals. No known affiliation. Possibly automatic recons left behind from pre-collapse operations, now running scheduled missions on outdated firmware. He tracked them heading east. 5 confirmed passes. He used an old FLIR camera module, salvaged from an abandoned Border Patrol vehicle, and confirmed heat signatures, matched standard quad-rotor heat maps, commercial-grade builds, probably military off-the-shelf, not active combat drones. No strikes, no broadcasts, just presence. He believes they may be part of an autonomous Overwatch loop left behind by defense contractors now out of contact. There's been one more strange update. This came in from a scout outside Tucson who's monitoring old aviation bands. At around 1,300 hours yesterday, a transmission was received on 1.5. The International Aircraft Emergency Frequency, often called GARD. It was a short burst, just 2 words repeated every 30 seconds. Still flying. That's it. The signal strength suggests it was line of sight from a low-altitude aircraft, maybe under 0 feet somewhere west of the Catalina Mountains. Likely a small craft. Perhaps military. Perhaps private. No transponder, no ID, no further voice comms. Just still flying. Over and over. Could have been an automated message. Could have been a person who wanted someone in to know they were up there. If you hear it again, record the timestamp and direction. Use pencil and paper. Pass it on. I've gotten questions about what devices still work. Let me run down a short list. Analog radios, AM, FM, shortwave, still usable. Limit your use during daytime for long-range transmission. Use night cycles, and bounce off the ionosphere when possible. Ham rigs. If you're licensed, use them. If not, learn from someone who is. Stick to emergency and general comms. Avoid jamming. Walkie-talkies. FRS. GMRS. Line of sight only. Good in neighborhoods. Range varies with terrain. Great for foot patrol coordination. Old CB radios. Especially those with built-in SWR meters. They're crude, but reliable. Truckers from the 80s had it right. Maps. The kind you fold. Paper. Laminated if possible. Use pencil. Ink smears under sweat. Wired phones. Rare, but some legacy landline systems with their own switchboards may still work, especially in remote towns. Flash drives. Still work. Portable intranet systems are popping up where people share survival manuals, recipes, news articles, and basic programming guides via flash exchanges. It's like the internet's lungs, breathing through a straw. Now, let me address something heavy. Misinformation. Just because the internet's dead doesn't mean rumor died with it. I've intercepted at least 4 broadcasts in the past 48 hours claiming the internet's back in DC. Or Space Force is restoring secure access. Or quantum mesh will replace old cloud systems. No evidence, no authentication, no signatures, just high-volume bursts of hopeful nonsense. Hope is good, but false hope kills. If you can't verify it face-to-face, via analog broadcast, or direct repeatable signal, treat it like a lie. Not because people are malicious, but because in the dark, even shadows look like salvation. Tomorrow morning, I'll try to reach out to a team said to be restoring partial municipal grid access in Durango, Colorado. They're reportedly using microgrids powered by hydro from the Animus River. If I get confirmation, I'll report on air at 0900 hours. Until then, if you're near the southern corridor, watch for crossings. Not everyone coming over is looking for harm, but not everyone is coming in peace either. Just like us, they're desperate, scared, starving, uncertain. Build bridges where you can. Raise fences where you must. But never stop listening. You're listening to Emergency Relay Channel, 1190 AM. My name is Marcus Keller. I'm still broadcasting from the old Firewatch Tower on Mount Eldon, just north of Flagstaff, Arizona. This is day 7 since the collapse of the global internet infrastructure. 1 week without the world's digital nervous system. And still every night I see lights moving out there in the dark. Some of them are ours. Most of them aren't. Tonight, I want to talk about what those lights mean now and what they don't. Yesterday evening, just after sunset, I saw a line of flickering headlamps winding their way through the forest access road about 4 miles west of here. 10, maybe 12 vehicles, crawling slowly uphill, no high beams. They moved in silence, like they didn't want to be noticed. I kept my lights out. I didn't transmit, just watched. I don't know if they saw the tower silhouette or not. They turned off into the trees near the old utility cabin and didn't come back out. I hiked out this morning to scout. The tracks were wide, likely trucks. A few boot prints in the dust, organized, heavy tread. No signs of panic. No signs of scavenging. Just a movement. A migration, maybe. Northbound. This kind of thing is happening all over. Near Holbrook, residents have started hanging green chem lights outside windows at night. It means safe house, a holdover from a prepper network that used to communicate through encrypted Discord servers before the collapse. The same group now runs low-power analog relays on the 5-watt band, bouncing messages from rooftop to rooftop using hand-built Yagi antennas. I spoke with a former member of their comms team guy named Reed. He said the colors mean different things depending on the region. Red for quarantine, blue for barter, yellow for medicine. But outside their circles, those meanings are already getting confused. Some folks think red means armed, others think it means open access. That's the danger now when there's no central map, symbols become slippery. A flickering porch light might mean help me, or it might mean stay away. The city of Durango, Colorado is trying something more organized. I finally made contact with a repeater up there. The operator's name is Linda Travers. Used to work for San Juan County's Emergency Operations Center. She's running a microgrid on converted hydropower from the Animus River, enough to power 1 fire station and a block of homes. She and a small team volunteers mostly have restarted shortwave transmissions, relaying weather patterns, known hazards, and confirmed safe zones across western Colorado and southern Utah. Her group calls themselves Net West 9. They're coordinating with survivors in Telluride, Grand Junction, and Moab. They even have a printed newsletter they distribute by Bike Couriera, kind of analog internet built from paper and pedaling legs, 1 page at a time. They've got no illusions. Linda was blunt. She said it straight. The old net's not coming back, but maybe something smaller can grow in its shadow. They're working on peer-to-peer optical line of site comms using laser diodes, and basic encoding enough to send a few kilobytes per second across rooftops. It's rudimentary, sure, but it's deliberate, and it works. That's the shift I'm seeing. Not people waiting for tech to fix itself, but people rebuilding slowly, intentionally, away from dependence. Meanwhile, bigger cities are blacking out completely. Albuquerque is dark. No AM signals, no CB chatter, a silent bowl. The last relay I heard was 4 days ago, from a fire team west of Sandia Crest, saying they were evacuating toward Santa Rosa with burn victims from an apartment fire caused, I imagine, by improvised heating. Since then, nothing. One operator in Las Vegas said he spotted convoys heading east, but it's unclear if they were organized relief or just armed scavengers with spare fuel. Denver is holding barely. Reports suggest the downtown core is under martial regulation, but it's unclear who's enforcing it. Military? Local security? Some say a federal continuity unit is holed up near Buckley Space Force Base, but without confirmation, it's just another rumor among thousands. Most surrounding neighborhoods have gone dark, save for those with solar backups. Amateur operators from Westminster and Aurora are bouncing signals off high-rise rooftops, creating narrowcast zones where neighborhoods can exchange updates and supplies without leaving their streets. They've even restarted local school lessons, using chalkboards and cassette tapes. No bells, no homework portals, just desks and real-time breathing teachers. It's not the apocalypse. It's not some scorched wasteland, but it's hollow and tense. We were a society structured on speed. Now we're forced to live inside the pause. People are still trying to be good, mostly. But good gets tired when the lights go out. I want to mention something strange I picked up last night on 13.335 MHz upper shortwave, weak signal, a repeating loop. Male voice, slightly distorted, but audible. The message said, "Echo ring operational. Bandwidth restricted. Uplink denied. Status, legacy fallback." It ran for 30 minutes, then went dead. I've been in comms a long time. That kind of phrasing sounds like automated system fallback language, maybe from a deep-seated defense protocol. Echo ring isn't a term I recognize, but the cadence felt military. Possibly old NORAD code, or a dormant system that kicked in once it lost central control. If anyone else heard this, especially near Cheyenne or Colorado Springs, I'd like to compare logs. Time of reception was 2,314 hours UTC. Signal strength 3x4. Faded completely by 2,346. I've also heard from a group outside Wichita attempting to restart a local data mesh using Raspberry Pi units and offline Wikipedia dumps. They're calling their node the archive, and they're asking anyone with hard drives, flash drives, or printed reference books to come contribute. They're building a physical Interneta walk-in room where people can read, print, or request files by form. No passwords, no usernames, just pencils, keyboards, and folders. Some kids, born after 2010, probably never used a public library without Wi-Fi. This might be their first time seeing what static knowledge looks like. There's a shortwave call net forming at 3.680 MHz LSB. The net check-ins run every night at 2,100 hours Mountain Time. If you're listening from Utah, Nevada, Western Colorado, Northern Arizona tree to tune in, operators are using phonetic identifiers and passing relay traffic manually. It's a fragile chain, but it's the closest thing to a functioning regional broadcast relay we have. Before I go tonight, a message was delivered to the base of the tower. A young couple hiking up from Doney Park left a sealed envelope inside a dry bag. It reads, "To anyone out there, we're heading toward Kayenta. If you find this, and you've heard anything about Loop Arizona, anyone is still transmitting from there, please let us know. We lost our grandmother in the first outage. She lived alone. Her name is Anita Yazzie. Please leave a sign at the Tuba City Water Tower if she's alive. A blue ribbon tied around the south ladder. We'll check. I'll repeat this message during tomorrow's morning broadcast. If you're anywhere near Loop, or if you've seen movement near the old schoolhouse where she used to live, leave the sign. This is how we find each other now. Not with GPS, not with tags or trackers, but with trails and signals and scraps of ribbon." Emergency Relay Channel, 11:90 a.m. This is Marcus Keller. Station Echo November 2. Still broadcasting from the Firewatch Tower on Mount Eldon, above Flagstaff, Arizona. It's the 8th day since the collapse. 8 days of silence from the cloud, the networks, the satellites, the systems that once told us who we were. And now, voices are starting to return, but not all of them are real. Some are echoes, some are traps, some are meant to deceive. I want to talk tonight about the signals you should not follow. At 1,000, 700 hours yesterday. I picked up a narrow band transmission on 7.60 MHz. It was unusually strong clean, perfectly modulated, almost studio quality. The message was simple. Connection restored. Join the recovery grid. Channel link. Restore node 12, Southern Arizona. Full uplink available. It looped every 15 minutes. Now, anyone who's been in radio for longer than 5 minutes can tell you, this is bait. The wording, the signal clarity, the timing all too polished. There's no uplink, no grid, no restore nodes. That's a fantasy pulled straight from sci-fi. Someone or something is broadcasting false hope on a schedule, using language designed to imitate tech speak and lure the desperate. Worse, the message instructed listeners to bring all surviving devices for reboot and sync. That line chilled me. It sounds like a message meant to draw people in physically to get them to come in person, carrying their gear, maybe even their families. This isn't the first such signal. Reports have come in from Northern California, East Texas, and Southern Nevada describing similar messages. Different frequencies, same phrasing. It's unclear if they're coordinated or copycats, but the outcome's always the same. People go looking for the source, and they don't come back. A man named Tom Crenshaw, retired wildland firefighter from Prescott, followed one such signal a few days ago. He found a wrecked antenna array outside Camp Verde, rigged with a solar inverter and a looped recording on an old digital audio unit. But nobody was there, just the voice, playing endlessly into the dark. He said it sounded like it was recorded from a podcast, maybe AI generated, spliced from old tech briefings. No shelter, no recovery point. Just a plastic crate filled with burned-out phones, solar chargers, and a blood-stained scarf. He didn't stay long. This is the new face of danger hoaxes, wearing the mask of hope. We spent decades learning to trust voices from small speakers. Voices on demand. Directions read aloud. Confirmations delivered instantly. And now those same habits can kill. I know it's tempting. I know some of you are out there hoping to find something real on the other end of those perfectly clear signals. But the good ones don't sound good. They crackle. They cut out. They hesitate. They're human. If you hear a voice promising a return to normal with no stutter, no struggle, no verification, don't believe it. Instead, look for signs of actual work. Community boards, handwritten instructions, call-in nets, cross-confirmed frequencies, and repeaters operated by people who identify themselves with names and locations, not code names, not scripts, people with faces and flaws and fear in their voices. That's how you know it's real. Now, let me talk about something I've been noticing in the airwaves. There's a psychological shift happening. In the early days, day 1, day 2, most transmissions were focused, precise, asking for news, sharing logistics. By day 4, we started hearing voices ramble, people broadcasting from basements, church steeples, water towers. Some with experience, some with none. Reading poems, sharing music, talking to themselves in the dark. It's human. It's what we do when we don't know what else to do. But then came the breakdown voices. Operators falling apart on air. People sobbing, screaming, pleading with no one. A man in Idaho read his daughter's name into the microphone every 10 minutes for 4 hours straight. A woman in northern Texas played the same lullaby tape on loop until her generator failed. These aren't performances. They're not drama. They're the echoes of a world that moved too fast to teach us how to be still. Isolation is brutal. Not just physically, but mentally. Especially when everything you used to know about communication has changed. We were all taught the rules of online life. Check notifications, reply instantly, keep up. We weren't taught how to write a letter. We weren't taught how to wait for a response for 3 days. We weren't taught how to sit in silence and not spiral. I urge you, if you're listening to this right now, and your head's not in a good place, go outside. Step away from the screen. Sit under the sky. Even if it's cold, even if it's raining, breathe. Watch the horizon. You don't need to broadcast to matter. You're still here. That counts. This tower has no heat, no hot water, but I've started leaving a thermos of tea near the stairs for anyone passing by. No schedule, no instructions, just a gesture. So far, 4 cups have disappeared. No one ever knocks. That's okay. The silence is enough. Now, let's talk about the reconnection zones being claimed in the southeast. A signal out of Birmingham, Alabama AM 1090 declares itself the official continuity node of Digital Restoration Zone 5. It says they're working with FEMA and the FCC to rebuild network access across key cities. They list Atlanta, Montgomery, Chattanooga, and Memphis as stabilizing. I tried to raise them via shortwave. Nothing. I asked 2 other operators near Nashville if they'd heard anything. They hadn't. One man said Nashville's completely dark, except for the university campus, which is reportedly running off a hydro-Pelton wheel converted from a water filtration plant. In other words, Zone 5 doesn't exist. It's a brand name for something that died a week ago. Still, people are heading toward Birmingham. One group from Kansas left 2 days ago. A relay team near Amarillo passed their position this morning. 4 vehicles, civilian, headed southeast with printed directions and painted license plates that read, FEMA Pass. Whether they made those themselves or someone gave them out, I can't say. But if they get there and find nothing, well, best case, they lose time and fuel. Worst case, they run into someone counting on their desperation. Beware of those who offer too much certainty. In this new world, certainty is the first thing to rot. I want to thank a man named Cyrus, who dropped off a binder here 2 nights ago. It was wrapped in a plastic bag and labeled, for Keller or anyone who can still read. Inside was a printed out copy of the Army Field Manual on Survival, a Morse code reference, laminated pages from the old SATCOM registry, and a list of useful plants in high-altitude forest regions. He didn't stay to talk, but he left a note. Hope isn't a signal, it's a habit. I've copied that and pinned it to the inside of the tower wall. Tomorrow night, I'll share updates from a network forming in central Nebraska-Lincoln, to be specific, where a group of engineers is working on analog comms towers to replace lost cell signals with packetized radio data. Think slow text messages over walkie. It's early yet, but it's promising. Until then, be cautious with what you hear. Let your ears do the work, but let your judgment filter the rest. I want to talk tonight about power. Not government power, not broadband, literal power, electricity. The thing most of us didn't think about until it wasn't coming out of the wall anymore. In the cities, power flickered out fast. Not because the generators failed right away, but because the systems that manage them did. Scatato's industrial control systems, we all assumed were air-gapped, were tied, in more places than you'd like to know, to remote dashboards, cloud monitoring, and off-site triggers. When the cloud dropped, the fail-safes kicked in. Some shut down preemptively. Others tripped when automated systems failed to confirm parameters. Either way, plants that were supposed to keep running just didn't. The diesel backups helped briefly. Hospitals ran for a day or 2. Some fire stations held longer. But fuel logistics broke down almost instantly. The tracking systems that told drivers where to go and when, that routed tankers across state lines, that optimized refueling, runs all silent. And without those networks, the truck sat idle or disappeared into private storage. Now, we're in the second stage. Improvisation. People are figuring out that power doesn't just come from the grid, it comes from ingenuity, from wire, scrap, wind, and will. A listener out of Grants, New Mexico, calls himself Leo, has been running his house on a cobbled-together array of golf cart batteries, salvaged solar panels, and a charge controller he built from parts, scavenged at a defunct off-grid Airbnb compound. His neighborhood uses his signal as a daily time beacon. They've set their watches to his transmissions, and at noon sharp, He fires up a shortwave tone burst on 6.92 megahertz, so neighbors can sync their clocks. It's basic, but it keeps things moving. In rural Nebraska, the farming communities around Beatrice are sharing power using an old irrigation network as a cable conduit. They pulled the PVC, threaded weatherproof line, and divided up generator use by parcel. If you've got diesel, you run. If not, you help repair. They've even set up a rotation schedule printed weekly and posted on the grain co-op's barn wall. Every house gets 4 hours of shared power per day, enough to charge radios, power lights, run a chest freezer if you're lucky. The folks in parts of northern Arizona closer to Tuba City are using modified wind turbines that were once installed for a defunct school science project. A math teacher named Ella rigged up a charging station inside a retired school bus, complete with LED indicators and voltage meters stripped from broken laptops. Kids come by on foot to charge flashlights, radios, and calculators. Yes, calculators. Because she's still holding classes. 3 days a week, open air, blackboard painted on the side of a trailer. And here's something you won't find in a prepper manual community-powered crank lines. In a town called Lakeview, Oregon, residents rigged a bicycle generator station outside the old library. 2 stationary bikes mounted on cinder blocks, with belt drives running alternators. If you want to read after dark, you pedal. You put in 5 minutes, and you earn 5 minutes of reading light. Simple exchange. No bartering. No guard. Just understanding. I heard from a listener there who called it exercise with purpose. She said the first night, 15 people showed up. By the third night, it was 40. They started bringing food to share. Someone played a harmonica. Now, it's the town square powered by sweat, lit by trust. We don't need the grid to be human. Just the will to keep others warm. Up here at the tower, I've made some changes too. The little crank generator I used for backup was never meant for full-time use, so I've upgraded. Found a discarded e-bike battery down in the canyon last week, and with a bit of rewiring and some voltage regulation, I've managed to stretch broadcast hours. It's not elegant, but it works. I also wired an old motion sensor from a decommissioned trail camera to the south stairs. It triggers a blinking red LED when someone's approaching after dark. Not for defense, just warning. Gives me a few extra seconds to stand, listen, breathe. Because lately, more people have been coming up the trail. They don't always speak. Some just rest for a while on the rock near the fire pit, drink a little water, and leave. I don't stop them. We're not animals. We don't need fences if we still have decency. But I've started writing small notes. Weather reports, signal updates, lists of confirmed frequencies. I tuck them into Ziploc bags and leave them under a flat stone by the door. If someone wants to know what's going on, all they have to do is look. No password, no subscription, just words and paper. There's something deeply right about that. Now, I want to pass along a technical tip. If you've got an inverter and you're trying to run devices like a radio or a fan, be aware of waveform compatibility. A pure sine wave inverter will handle most appliances fine, but modified sine wave inverters may damage sensitive electronics, especially those with microprocessors or rechargeable lithium packs. If your inverter gets hot fast or your radio makes a strange whine, you might be pushing dirty power. And if you're running solar without a charge controller, don't. You're risking battery overvoltage and fire. At minimum, use a blocking diode and a simple voltage meter. I've found more than one burn system in the last week, caused by people wiring panels straight into battery banks. Learn from that. Old RV manuals, ham radio books, printouts from off-grid forums. They're gold now. Share them. Copy them. Don't hoard knowledge. It dies alone. Before I close tonight, I want to share a message received in Morse from a station identifying as Old Crow, based somewhere west of Colorado Springs. The message read, Day 9, power stable, water from snow melt. 4 of us here. Books, blankets, bullets. We'll hold. Not scared, just stubborn. I smiled reading that. Not scared, just stubborn. That's the spirit of analog. That's what survival looks like when you know no one's coming to reboot the cloud. So if you're out there tonight, pedaling a generator, tending a battery bank, soldering a panel, or just using your hands to hold together something someone else gave up, know this. You are the grid now. And the rest of us are listening. There's a pattern I've been hearing in the voices that reach me. It's in the pauses, in the long stretches between words, in the way people start strong and then fall quiet. I've heard trained operators with decades of field comms start transmissions and trail off into nothing. Not because the signal dropped, because they did. We weren't built for this kind of isolation, not at this scale, not in this era. We were connected at all hours, living in the middle of millions of overlapping digital threads. DMs, notifications, comments, pings, location updates. We never sat in silence unless we chose it. Now, that silence isn't optional. It's everywhere, and it's heavy. Earlier this week, a man named Jeremy from Pueblo called out on shortwave. He was speaking clearly at first, giving a report on fuel availability along Highway 50. Then he paused, just stopped. There was about 20 seconds of dead air before he said, "I haven't heard my wife's voice in 6 days." Then he keyed off. Nothing since. That's what this new world is doing to us. It's not just logistics we're losing, it's ourselves, our sense of reality. The digital version of us, the one always reflected back by likes, messages, video calls, that person's gone now. And for some of us, the flesh and blood version is a stranger we're just now meeting. We're grieving. Even if we haven't lost anyone physically, we're mourning something. A structure, a presence, the daily rhythm of being seen, of being known. That grief has no funeral, no closure, and it's showing up in strange ways. One woman in Gallup has started writing letters to herself and leaving them under windshield wipers in the grocery parking lot. Not addressed to anyone, just writing down what she wishes someone would say to her. Last week, I passed through and found one fluttering on a cracked Toyota's window. It said, "You're doing fine. Your plants will survive. Keep boiling the water." I took it and taped it to the inside of my transmission desk. I've also received audio logs, on cassette tapes no less. One was from a teacher in Belen. She recorded herself reading stories aloud, classic children's books, and said she wasn't sure if any kids were listening, but it made her feel like her classroom still existed. Her name was Marcy. She ended the tape by saying, "Please rewind when you're done, so someone else can pretend I'm still out there." We all have ghosts now. Ghosts of who we were. Digital remains in dead inboxes, unsent photos, chat histories we can't recover. That data's still out there, technically. On servers, in cold storage arrays, blinking blindly in empty collocation centers. But the people who could access them? They're gone. The keys are lost. The doors are melted plastic and fire-blackened racks. What does it mean when your whole identity was on a server no one can reach? I had a username I used for almost 20 years. Same one across sites, always the same avatar. Friends I never met. Conversations that spanned continents. I don't know their real names. I don't know where they lived. I just know that we used to talk. And now nothing. I can still picture our last message thread, but I'll never read it again. That hurts in a way I wasn't prepared for. Some survivors are handling this better than others. A woman named Noor from Moab has started hosting daily listening circles. No talking, no introductions. Just neighbors sitting in a circle in silence for 20 minutes, followed by 10 minutes of soft music played on a hand-cranked record player. She says it's about remembering how to hear without reacting. I think it's about staying human in a world that feels like it's shedding its skin, because the silence doesn't just stay outside. It starts to live inside you. If you don't let it out, it settles behind your ribs like dust. I want to speak to those of you out there who are struggling. If you're thinking about giving up, know this. You are not alone. I know that's a cliche, But cliches became cliches because they were true long before the internet ever existed. Somewhere right now, someone else is tuning their radio, wondering if anyone out there still cares enough to speak. And that someone might be just up the road. Or they might be 500 miles away in a dry attic, listening by candlelight. If you feel like you can't talk to anyone, write it down. If you can't write it down, say it out loud even if no one's in the room. You're still real. Your voice is still yours. It doesn't need a signal to matter. Take care of your mind like you'd take care of your water filter. Check it. Clean it. Talk about it. Don't let it back up until it poisons you. And if you need structure, make it. Rebuild your week from scratch. Pick a day to walk. Pick a day to repair something. Pick a day to remember something good. If you're sheltering with others, assign radio hours, storytelling shifts, quiet hours. Don't default to despair. Default to rhythm. I'm still receiving basic weather reports from a small relay near Pinetop Lakeside. They're using a converted NOAA sensor array and a mercury barometer tied to a hand-cranked beacon. They issue forecasts in haiku form. One of today's messages read, "Cold wind from the west. Birch limbs crack under white weight. No rain, just silence." It's not scientific, but it tells you everything you need to know. It's cold, it's brittle, it's quiet, and someone cared enough to say so. I've added a message chalkboard to the side of the tower. Nothing fancy, just a bit of salvaged plywood and a strip of sidewalk chalk I traded for a can of soup. If you pass by, write something. Anything. Even if no one else sees it, I will. I erase it at sunrise and leave it blank for the next. Because we don't have a feed anymore. We have walls and paper and voices. And that's still enough. Emergency Relay Channel, 11:90 a.m. Marcus Keller here. From Station Echo November 2, Mount Eldon, Flagstaff, Arizona. This is day 12 since the collapse of the global internet. 12 days since the pings stopped. Since the cloud dissolved. Since the cables died beneath oceans we'll never see and data centers burned in cities we may never visit again. And now, with this broadcast, I'm closing the loop. Not going silent, but drawing a line under the beginning. This is the final installment of this relay series. After this, I'll move to staggered updates, rotating frequencies. But before I do, I want to tell you what's left and what's next. Let's start with the obvious. The internet, as we knew it, is not coming back. Not the real-time web. Not the global marketplace. Not the hyper-connected sprawl that stitched every human thought into a searchable archive. That world ended without a bang. It ended with a buffering wheel, with blank screens, with questions asked aloud and no one replying in under a second. We lost more than a tool. We lost a layer of meaning. For many people, it was their voice, their identity, their memory. There are teenagers right now who never printed a photo of their family, who had every moment backed up to services that no longer exist. Photographs, songs, text threads, video calls, entire relationships, now inaccessible. Memories sealed in server racks thousands of miles away, behind locked doors with no electricity and no one left to maintain the keys. I don't think we'll grasp the true psychological cost for years if we make it that far. But here's what else we've learned. What's rising from the ashes of Signal. In the past 2 days alone, I've received more than 20 separate confirmations of functional relay networks forming across the continental U.S. Some are as small as a pair of towers using CB band and rooftop antennas. Others are full analog message chains bike couriers, high-frequency handoffs, repeaters powered by livestock treadmills or miniature hydro wheels. In western Missouri, a group of former electrical workers and farmers has restarted a low-power data net using packet radio. The signal's slow, measured in characters per second, but it's functional. Think of it like email. If email was carried one envelope at a time between barns, and every word was worth its weight in beans. In Santa Fe, there's a theater company that's repurposed its blackout space for civic meetings. No stage, no curtain, just a circle of chairs and a chalkboard labeled News from Elsewhere. Every night, someone reads the messages gathered from local transmissions. It's not news like we used to know, but it's shared truth. And that's enough. We've gone from globalized complexity to localized resilience. What used to be apps are now habits. What used to be platforms are now people. We've gone from scrolling to speaking, from retweeting to relaying. And maybe, just maybe, we're better off without the noise. Let me be clear. This isn't a celebration. We lost something vast and powerful. Access to knowledge, medicine, family. We lost coordination. We lost the shared calendar of civilization. But what we're gaining is something different. Not speed, not scale, but solidity. There are places now where time has meaning again. Where noon is the sun, not a synced atomic clock. Where children mark days by chalk, not alarms. Where a recipe passed down in pencil is more valuable than any subscription service ever was. I think we forgot, in the old world, how to be satisfied with enough. The internet taught us to want everything, all at once. Every voice, every fact, every opinion, every product. And now, with that gone, people are learning what they actually need. You need a safe place to sleep. You need enough light to read by. You need food. You need medicine. You need kindness. You need someone to remind you that your story still matters, even if no one's watching. And you need to be heard. I've been heard more in the past 12 days than I was in 12 years online. Not by thousands, not by followers, but by real people. Operators in basements. Kids with crayon maps of local signals. Retired radio techs, building antennas from rebar and duct tape. A woman in Cortazur name is Minnesens, out bedtime stories every night at 30 hours sharp on 3.950 megahertz. No announcements, no greetings, just her voice, reading old fairy tales. She doesn't care who's listening, but she never misses a night. That's what consistency looks like now. Not metrics, just presence. And the dogs still bark. The wind still moves. The sun still rises, though sometimes we miss it through the haze of wood smoke. But it's there. This morning, I watched a boy couldn't have been older than 10 ride a scooter up the fire road with a plastic crate strapped to the back. Inside were printed pages, Morse code charts, a local weather map, and a flyer drawn in marker that said, "Need help. Ask for Jay. I fix radios." He left the crate at the base of the tower and rode off. I haven't seen him before. I don't know where he came from. But he was real. And he was trying. That's the code now. We try. Even if it's small. Especially if it's small. So here's what I'll do. I'm shifting this station to a rotating schedule. 3 broadcasts per day. 0, 600, 1400, and 2100 hours. I'll keep sharing what I hear. I'll keep posting signals and routes and real voices. I'll leave chalk at the message board. I'll change the tea thermos every morning. But this will be my final long-format transmission. We've said what needed to be said. We've told the truth. The world is broken, but it isn't over. If you've been listening since day one, thank you. You helped me stay grounded. If you're hearing this for the first time, write down the frequency. Share it. Relay it. Or better yet, build your own. Speak where you are. Even if it's only for a few blocks. A few homes, a family across the street. That's where it starts. This isn't the end of the world, just the end of one version. And now, it's on us to build something better. Slower, smaller, but maybe stronger.